That was 3 years ago. Government about to ban this therapy. Let's talk now to Vicky Beeching, who's a writer and equality campaigner who underwent an exorcism and therapy to try and cure her homosexuality. Crispin Blunt is here, Conservative MP for Reigate. Jane Ozan is with us. She's in Oxford. She went through conversion therapy and she sits on the Church of England General Synod. Dr Louise Theodosu is from the Royal College of Psychiatrists. She's in Salford, and Michael Davidson is in Belfast. He's head of the Core Issues Trust. They offer these therapies. He describes himself as ex-gay. Mr Davidson was banned 5 years ago from the British Psychodrama Association because, as a founder member of the Core Issues Trust, he was in breach of the ethical code of both the British Psychodrama Association and the UK Council for Psychotherapy. Crispin Blunt, why is your government planning to ban this?
Because it's wrong.
Why?
Simply because sexuality is inherent, and if you then take people on a conversion programme, plainly they're being sold a pup. You can't convert people from something that they inherently are.
Michael Davidson?
Well, a few years ago, the government argued in the Royal Courts of Justice that ex-gay is a protected category under the Equality Act of 2010. So now the government is discriminating openly against ex-gays. This is a huge problem.
How do you respond to that, Mr Blunt?
Well, I think it's obviously total nonsense.
Tell him why.
The idea that the challenges that are faced by LGBT people, that we're then going to suddenly produce this group of ex-gays when sexuality, all the evidence is that it's inherent. And the wonderful thing about the change in our society over my lifetime has meant that I grew up in a place where I simply had no points of reference that made any sense for me. And I entered a profession where, if I was myself, it was illegal.
But the problem is we are discriminating.
Society has massively changed. And the great thing about this survey of 108,000 people is that whilst we have won the major battles around decriminalisation, equality, the age of consent, equality of marriage and the rest, there are still obviously plenty of areas where LGBT people face discrimination in society. And the idea that people are then going to then be faced with conversion therapy is just truly shocking.
We don't offer conversion therapy.
How do you respond to the fact that it's about to be banned?
It won't be banned ultimately because people do have the right to choose the direction that they want to go in, and mandatory gay just won't work.
Right.
You cannot force people to be gay just because they have the feelings.
So you're going to continue to offer it even if it's banned, even when it's banned?
I will seek legal advice and we will do the right thing, but we'll certainly be there and available for people who've had enough of having a gay ideology pushed down their throat.
Right. Well, let me put that point to you. I mean, it is offering a choice. It is there as a choice if somebody wants to access it, which you have done in the past, Vicky Beeching, which Jane has done too, and I'll ask you both about your experiences in a moment. Why are you stopping other people in the future accessing
Well, the interesting question is, and I would put this to Mike, why are people actually seeking these therapies in the first place? I think that is actually the key underpinning question of this entire debate. And for me and many other LGBT people, it's because people like Mike are peddling a message that being gay is actually sinful and shameful, and that was what drove me to seek out voluntarily an exorcism at the age of 16, and then decades of counselling therapy to become straight.
It didn't work
but there isn't actually a need
to
change if you're not sinful and shameful in the first place.
But Michael Davidson says, well, go on, you tell us. You tell Vicky, you didn't want to be gay, so you sought out this kind of therapy, and you say it worked.
It certainly worked for me. Together with my wife, we decided that this is the pathway that we wanted to go in. That's not being critical of anybody who doesn't follow the direction that we went. Yes, I do think it is in Christian terminology. That's a fairly major bias,
isn't it, in the therapy that you're offering? And that is the danger, and I think that's why we need governmental crackdowns.
Well then, tell me this, Vicky, why is it that more than 50% of the clients who come in my direction don't subscribe to Christian theology? They come from other points of view, or they come from no points
I
of
would say
view.
it's
But they've
sociological
tried
pressure, probably
gay
with a
and it
religious
doesn't
underpinning.
work.
Can I just read to you, Mr Davidson, the list of organisations that signed a letter to the government last year calling for what you do to be outlawed, which the government has now listened to according to today's plans. The British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy say gay conversion therapy should be banned. So does the British Association for Behavioural and Cognitive Psychotherapies, as well as the British Psychoanalytic Council, the British Psychological Society, the College of Sexual and Relationship Therapists, the Association of LGBT Doctors and Dentists, the National Counselling Society, the NHS in Scotland, Pink Therapy, the Royal College of GPs, the Scottish Government, Stonewall, and the UK Council for Psychotherapy.
Well, the issue is...
No. They all want it banned. You are a lone voice.
Yes.
No, I'm not a lone voice. Have a look at our DVD, Voices of the Silence. There are 15 voices there and experts from around the world who talk about
Well, you're
this.
not an expert. I mean, you're a doctor in education, not a medical doctor.
Yes, you're right. Victoria, here's the point. The European Convention on Human Rights has clearly made the way open for people to choose the direction that they want to go in, and the government will have to do something about that fact
Let me bring
before
in
they
Jane.
ban things.
Jane Ozam in Oxford, you were offered conversion therapy. You sit on the Church of England General Synod. What was your experience?
Well, I voluntarily went through this like Vicky did, because I believed, as many do, that being gay was sinful, and I didn't want to live with the shame, and frankly I wanted to be happy, I wanted to be loved, and I wanted a family. So I would do anything to go through, and I put myself through loads of prayer ministry. I spent lots of money. That's one of the things that doesn't come out here, but it didn't work.
But
There
what
were
is it?
periods
What is the therapy? What is it? You pray? You what?
well, there's
what?
it's a catch-all phrase. You can pray into your past relationships with your parents or with significant people. You go through deliverance ministry. I went through many exorcisms.
We don't offer
You go
it.
through fasting and prayer, but the key problem is it causes great harm. There are many young people
We
who are
offer
suffering mental
standard
health.
psychotherapeutic
Mike, please let me
practice.
finish. Who often, he doesn't want the truth to come out, that have many mental health issues, self-harm, suicidal tendencies as a result of this, because they feel so guilty when it doesn't work. And we know that this causes harm. When I did a survey last year to see how many people had gone through conversion therapy, over 217 people replied, and 2/3 of them said because they thought it was sinful, but they went on to say how damaging it was to their own mental health. And this is an issue where the government has to act because of the harm it is doing to our young people today.
Jane, you're using convenient samples, not randomized controlled samples.
I have talked to thousands of people, Mark, or they have been in touch with me since my book and Vicky's book's come out.
Of
talking about the
course.
horrors that they've been through.
I want to ask. Hang on a minute, just a minute.
Have you
I'm going to ask Vicky for
listened
the
to?
impact on your physical and mental health. How would you describe it?
Yeah, so I was someone who went and sought therapy from someone a bit like Mike, trusting that they would be unbiased. And for me, the fallout was depression and anxiety, suicidal thoughts as a teenager, almost a suicide attempt in my late 20s. And then, as you say, also a physical health symptoms began to emerge, lots of fatigue. Finally, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called scleroderma, and my skin cells were turning into scar tissue. And the doctor said to me my body was literally at war. And they blamed that kind of war on the internal fight that I was having between my faith and my sexuality. So this is devastating. People's lives are literally hanging in the balance.
Let me bring in Dr. Louise Theodosi from the Royal College of Psychiatrists. Thank you for your patience. What's your reaction to the fact that this is going to be banned by the government?
The Royal College 100% backs the banning of this therapy. We signed up to the memorandum. There's no evidence base to support this therapy.
What are the psychological issues associated with attempting to cure people of their homosexuality?
I think, as we've heard, your sexuality and your gender identity are inherent, and there's no evidence base and no therapeutic treatment to change what is simply a part of a person's nature.
But the Royal College of Psychiatrists didn't sign up to the 2017 version of the Memorandum of Understanding. Why is that? Is it about
the Church of England did, Mike, and you need to understand.
But did the Royal College of Psychiatrists, the Church of England is not an expert. The Royal College of Psychiatrists...
Hang on a minute. So you've asked the question. Dr. Louise Theodosi, would you like to answer that?
What I'd like to say is that we 100% back the ban, and there's no evidence base for the treatment.
And what about the therapy for gender identity? Are you backing the banning of that? Because that's part of the Memorandum of Understanding.
What we do is that we work with the community who experience gender dysphoria, and we offer ethical and evidence-based treatments.
So the truth is, you're not fully behind the Memorandum of Understanding of 2017. You want it on one side of the equation, but not on the other.
I've simply said that we 100% back the ban on conversion therapy against sexuality.
Okay.
I think the
And I'm going to read some
point is there.
messages. Sorry, Crispin Blunt, you
Well,
wanted to say something earlier.
What I understood about myself when I was 18 was that there was something wrong with me. It took me a very long time and the whole of our society to change in its attitudes to now know there was nothing wrong with me. And I'm absolutely grateful to the government coming forward and banning a therapy which is going to turn around to people and say there is something wrong with them.
Which we
when
don't
it is
do.
patently
We
not
don't
the
do
case.
it.
Let me read some messages. WhatsApp on WhatsApp, Freddie says conversion therapy is a joke. Greg in Somerset says, as a gay man in my 40s, I'm horrified that gay conversion therapy plays any part.
We don't
in
offer it.
Sorry, I'm just trying to read messages from people who are listening to you around the country. Gay conversion therapy plays any part in 21st century life. Jack in Manchester texts to say, when I was younger and first came out, I held hands with my partner and I had things thrown at us from cars passing by. Since that point, I've never felt comfortable to do it again. That's related to the other part of the survey where 2 out of 3 gay couples say they wouldn't hold hands in public because they might feel uncomfortable and wouldn't know what the reaction would be. Would you hold hands in public, Kristen Blunt, with your partner?
I've held hands in public with my partner and then had someone taking the trouble to then go disgusting under their breath to me.
How did you react to that?
He got a barrowload of rather soldierly abuse, which hugely impressed my boyfriend. But made clear that what he was saying was totally unacceptable. But you can quite understand why other people in other circumstances would then simply desist and go back effectively hiding.
It's a lot harder than people think, and I think that's one good thing about the survey. It's shining a light on the fact that today in the 21st century, it is still difficult to be LGBT, especially in religious settings, but also, like you say, just in general society. I think
It's
this
really
survey
hard
helps.
being ex-gay,
Thank you.
Vicky.
Thank you very much, all of you. Really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. Vicky Beeching and Crispin Blunt, who came out, how many years ago was it now?
2010.
2010,
so
yeah.
Eight years ago in August.
Dr. Louise Theodosi from the Royal College of Psychiatrists, Michael Davidson, head of the Core Issues Trust, and Jane Ozan, who was offered conversion therapy. She sits on the Church of England General Synod. Thank you very much, all of you. Thanks for your time.